know why this character spoke to you, or this project spoke to you, because he's certainly an interesting character, to say the least.
Good question.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I've never been in a franchise before, if you exclude James Bond.
Oh, that's true. I'm sorry.
Which is only the most successful franchise in
I
the
do see
history
that.
of cinema. So aside from that,
Yeah, but it's basically British though, so that doesn't count.
Yeah, it's just a whole other world.
No?
I think MGM would have something to say about whether or not it is in fact British. But I think the character initially spoke to me through our incredible director, Francis Lawrence, when he called me up and said, "Jeffrey, would you like to be a part of this?" And I said, "Let me think about it for a minute." Yes. I think what, and I have to say, actually, honestly, if I'm to be frank, that I wasn't as aware of, the phenomenon as I probably might have been. I hadn't read the books, and I hadn't seen the movie. I see far fewer movies than I should. But upon delving into the material, I was really kind of floored by what I was reading, because these are big epic movies, but they're grounded in some pretty relevant and very interesting literature. And I guess particularly in that it's directed toward younger audiences, I kind of leaped at the opportunity pushed by my children to be a part of a movie that was a departure for me, in that it appealed to younger audiences, although I think as well these movies and these stories appeal to a wider, older parental audience as well. But does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Cool.
Thank you.
My question kind of goes off of that. I wondered how familiar any of you were with either the movie or the books before you started filming, or did you kind of try to stay out of that to follow the director?
Well, I think, Francis, we remained so pretty truthful. It was a very truthful adaptation, so I feel it would be really crazy if we hadn't read the novels, because there's so much beautiful information, and Suzanne took so much time really fleshing out these characters over 3 pieces. I think what was exciting about coming in is that not only do you get to come in and sort of create a character within a short one film, but that we all have these sort of arcs. We're all we don't have to play all of our cards in the first film, which is kind of exciting, and the way that she sort of laid it out was beautiful. But I was a fan of the film, and I read the novels when I was aware of the auditions. My little sister was a giant fan, and she had tried to get me to read them prior, and I always was like, oh, yeah. And then I was like, oh, I see. I literally read them in 48 hours in bed with a lot of ice cream, and I was crying a lot.
Thanks.
I saw the first movie in theaters, and then I instantly dove into the books, and I think I read them in a matter of a week. It was a page turn. I couldn't put it down, and I fell in love. And I remember reading Kashmir's Part very specifically, but little did I know at the time.
I had seen the first film with my wife, mainly because a lot of people were talking about it, if I'm honest. But I had no idea it was based on a trilogy of novels. I went in with with no expectations basically, and was kind of overwhelmed and awestruck by the performances were phenomenal, and the concept and the story was very interesting and new to me. I know there's similarities to other films people keep bridging, but no, it was very, very new, and it was really, really attractive as a project when the audition came through. I had no idea, like I say, there was books, and I knew nothing but the fact my character's name going into that first audition. And I didn't know what that was. I remember putting it into Google and finding a lot of but kind of went in blind, basically, and I had to sit down with Francis, initially, and he kind of discussed a little bit about what the character was, and I had a very, very specific opinion immediately without having read the books about what the character was. But then when I kind of dove into the books eventually, before we started filming, that there was definitely an eye-opening experience for me. You know, obviously Finnick goes on such a great journey along with a lot of the other characters, and I think, yeah, there was a lot more than meets the eye, and I think that was what really attracted me personally.
Did I not answer that?
You did
Oh, I'll go further though. I'll go further. You know, when you have like, you know, this kind of, or when you have like what's really an encyclopedia of, you know, encyclopedic background of your character, and when you have, you know, such, you know, detailed, you know, illustration of the entire cosmology of the story that you are, you know, trying to play some part in telling, you really would be like acting with, you know, with one eye asleep if you didn't, you know, go through and delve in as much as you possibly could to, you know, the you know, to the details provided in the book. So I mean, it was just like, you know, a no-brainer to dig in there and get after that stuff, you know. To find as much, you know, help as you can. I look for any crutch that I possibly can find when I'm trying to create these things. So, you know, it was necessary for me.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as an actor, you know, screenplays are generally, you know, picture books, you know, with a little dialogue to help tell the story. So you're creating a lot of that subtext. But when you've got such phenomenal source material, I mean, of course, I think, you know, any smart actor is going to look to that and take what they can, and I think there's a lot of good stuff there. I was a fan of the books before it was ever a film. So for me, I would have played like a Whig in the Capitol. I just wanted to be a part of this in some way. I was a huge fan, so yeah, I thought it was really cool to have some opportunity to bring somebody to life.
Okay, thanks.
My question's for Stephen. What was your reaction to the Hunger Games fans when they found out that you were playing Finnick? Like, you're going to be everywhere now. So what's your reaction to how we all reacted?
My initial reaction was I didn't like them very much. There was a lot of, you know, backlash that I'd been cast, partly because, you know, I wasn't 6 foot tall, blonde, tanned, and ripped like a god. But you know, there was a. Yeah, I mean, luckily I had a few months to prepare. But yeah, no, I mean, of course, you know, people read a book and they have an image in their head, and you know, when you get cast this fat English pale kid, there, you know, a lot of people can't see above and beyond what is already laid out in front of them, and it. You know, it kind of, I have to admit, you know, it spurred me on to work harder and to kind of prove people wrong. You know, I can only work as hard as I can, and I definitely push myself beyond my limits, you know, and you know, I hope I've done him justice, and I hope people won't be disappointed. You know, it's hard to say until people see a bit more than me topless giving someone a sugar cube. You know, it's going to be tough, but I'm sort of anxious and excited to share it.
Remember, you know, people were hanging Daniel Craig in effigy when he was cast as
Bond,
Bond,
James
you know,
Bond,
at
yeah.
first. So fans know a lot, but they don't necessarily know everything when it comes to these things.
I can say from being a female, he won't disappoint.
But there's also that thing that, you know, obviously the support, as sort of picture after picture is being kind of thrown out there, I think more and more people are kind of changing their opinions, which is nice, and, you know, there's always been a very supportive network, and what it has proved is that there is such a passion behind this you know, group of fans, and to be a part of that, and, you know, like I say, I hope I don't disappoint.
There seems to be a lot of new characters, a lot of new things. What can we expect from this second one that we didn't get from the first Hunger Games?
Well, wherever the first film left you, I mean, I feel like whatever you felt was safe, and whatever you thought that you sort of figured out, like, okay, now this is going to happen, these people are going to be okay. I mean, the whole thing is turned on its head. So, I mean, everything that you thought was up, it's going to be down. I mean, literally on every level, it's just a complete, you know, just a 180, you know, 360 turn. So I feel like that you can expect to just be completely, your mind just be blown, you know.
Blown mind. Expect a blown
Oh, I'm
mind.
sorry, I was like, I cuss, and what else can
I
I
know,
say? Like, there's so many things, there's so many like, emphasis words that I want to use, but.
I mean, and what we have to remember this time around is, you know, all the tributes going into the arena are all trained killers. They've all won, you know, their individual Hunger Games prior to, you know, the beginning of this film, and so they're all, I suppose, tortured souls, and have had to learn to adapt to survive up until this point. And what's interesting is having all these characters collide. You know, there's only one winner, as they say. And may the odds be ever in your favour. How many more taglines can I
But I think that, you know, one of the tools that's used to expand the experience is IMAX. And, you know, as we emerge into the arena, the aspect ratio of the filmmaking changes. So, you know, we enter this much more vivid, much more, you know, highly, you know, world of much higher resolution. And I think that really is kind of reflective of what happens in the story. The first story, The Hunger Games, very intimate story, much more intimate. It's kind of the creating of this world. But then, you know, there's more fun as the world is dismantled, as the world explodes, and that's what you know, what happens in Catching Fire. And I think it's also reflected in the filmmaking. And Francis Lawrence has done a masterful job, I feel, in leading us through this thing. I mean, he's a really kind of extraordinary filmmaker and leader in that regard, because he does it very quietly, very, you know, it's very clear, but very unassuming. But I had no idea of the extent to which he had realized, you know, the vision of this story until I saw it.
I know.
And as Jenna said, you know, the back of my head was, you know, was flying off after I, you know, experienced it. So I'm so excited. I've never been more excited for fans to take in the experience that I had watching a movie as I had with this. I think you know, they are voracious, and I think their voracious appetite will be satisfied by this and more.
I have a question from some kids in Monroe Middle School in Huntsville, Alabama. It says, the world of the Hunger Games is a really scary setting. How did you mentally prepare and motivate yourself to play a character in this world?
Well, you know, the arena is set in Hawaii. So that kind of tempered the fear factor for me, anyway. But you know, I think BT is more lover than fighter. You know, everyone else is kind of a bit more brutal in their tactics. So you know, I just kind of sat back and watched everyone else prepare, and I kind of read, you know, well, you know, at least metaphorically read, you know, books on Tesla and Thomas Edison and things like that. So that wasn't quite so fearful for me.
Well, Francis was such a beautiful component for the actors. I mean, allowing us to have not only like access to Suzanne with any questions that we had about anything that had to do with backstory of our characters, but also that, you know, when you basically are fighting for your life in a game of survival, there are some things that you will walk away from that are long-lasting, that are kind of quite damaging. You know, post-traumatic stress disorder is one of them, and I feel like Francis was very keyed into that and had a few people sit down with a post-traumatic stress disorder sort of specialist to be able to really ask specific questions, because I know that I had only read about it in novels and seen some things on book, but it was really nice to really get in there and key into you know, different flashbacks and the way you hold your body and where memories are stored, and all of that was such a, for me, really, really like eye-opening experience as an actor, because it does really key into a lot of the stuff that we do naturally anyways, like store certain ideas or use sounds as emotional awakenings. And so for me, that was a really nice place to kind of keep going back to, regardless of our tropical paradise that we were living in, is kind of living within certain, you know, sounds and ideas of just complete terror, and knowing how to sort of keep that in your body without completely wearing you out.
Can you repeat the question?
They wanted to know how you mentally prepared and motivated yourself to play the character.
You know, Kashmir's a character, and it's noted in the book. She's very prideful and arrogant. and confident. And that's so unlike who I really am. So going into it, you know, I did a little bit of research, and you know, I tried to pull up what I could and create as much of a backstory as I could, but you know, she was just somebody that I really had to tap into and just almost become a mean person, but it almost became a science, and I knew when to switch it on and when to obviously switch it off. Alan would remind me to switch it off a couple times. So, no, you know, it came down to a science, and it was able to flip it on and off to a certain degree at that point. But yeah, you know, I'm a person who walks around, likes to give free hugs. So playing a character who is just vile and expressed so much emotion just in her glances, it was a little bit of a challenge in the beginning.
All right, guys, we're out of time, so I want to say thank you to Jenna, Stephanie, Sam, Jeffrey,